Hello everyone, Reza here. In today's video, I will showcase how we can create an application-specific approval dashboard. We will create a leave request solution using Power Apps and SharePoint as a data source. We will leverage Power Automate for creating the approval scenarios, and the approvers will go straight to the Power App wherein we will showcase an approval dashboard, and there they can see all their pending approval requests. Click on the action button, which will launch the flow panel, and they can directly take their decision. So let's get started with the video, but first, my introduction. The scenario here is a leave request application. And as part of this application, I have a couple of ways to log in. One is to log in as an employee, and the other one is to log in as an approver. Now, if I log in as an employee, I can submit my leave requests. So if I click this, it takes me to a dashboard that showcases all my current leave requests. I can filter them down by the status of the approval process. So if I select pending, this will show me all my leave requests that are in pending status. At the same time, I can also see an approval progress sheet right here. So for this leave request, I submitted this. It's currently in pending status with my manager. Whereas on the other side, I have a vacation leave request, which has been approved by my manager, but it is pending the HR approval. When I make a selection, I can see the details of my leave request right here on the right-hand side panel. So these are just filters on the top to filter my leave requests based on the status. And of course, all will show me all my leave requests currently in the system. I have the option here to go ahead and create a new leave request wherein I can go out and fill the form and submit this so that the approval process can begin. Now, if we leverage Power Automate for approvals, in Power Automate, if I would like to take a decision related to the approval action that has been assigned to an approver, there are multiple ways in which the approver can take their decision. They can go to the email and respond using actionable messages. If they have the mobile app installed for Power Automate, they can take the approval decision directly from the mobile app, or they can go to the Flow homepage, go to Action Items, and go to Approvals, and this will list out all the approvals that the user has received. They can select the approval and take their approval decision. Now, the challenge here is that a user may receive approval requests from multiple solutions. Now, in my case here, I have a lot of approval requests that are pending. But where are these approval requests coming from? Are they coming from the leave request application? Are they coming from an invoice application? Are they just ad hoc approval requests? For me to break it down based on an application, there is no additional metadata here that provides me that information. It would be valuable if we have a dashboard that is specific to an application. So for example, the leave request application in my scenario. So what if in the app itself, if I log in as an approver, I can have a nice approval dashboard here that shows me all my pending requests related to the leave request application. So let's see how we can go about creating an approval dashboard specific to the leave request system. Now in my case, all the data related to the leave request, I'm storing it in a simple SharePoint list. My approval scenario here is a simple sequential approval pattern in which any new leave request first goes to the user's manager. If the manager approves it, it moves to the HR user, and then the HR user can take the final decision. If any of the manager or the HR user declines it, the status stays declined. If you look at my status column here that I'm maintaining as part of this column, I have the following statuses. So the first status would be pending manager approval. That's where the process will begin. If the manager approves it, it moves to pending HR approval. if the HR approver approves it, only then the status will go to approved. If either of the manager or the HR user decline it, the status would be set to declined. Also, I have a couple of person type columns here in SharePoint where I'm maintaining the manager information and the HR user information. I also have a multi-line text column called approval commands to track the commands during the approval process. And additionally now, I will go ahead and create a column of type single line of text, give it a name approval link, and I will click save. This is where I will store the URL to the approval request directly in Power Automate. So let's get started with building the flow. So in Power Automate, I will head over to Create, select the automated cloud flow, trigger the flow when an item is created in a SharePoint list. I will call this my leave request approval flow, and I will click Create. My trigger is when an item is created. I will pick my SharePoint site. I will pick my leave request list. So item gets created, the flow gets triggered. Next, I need the user's manager who has created the request. So for that, I will add a new step, search for manager, and in the Office 365 users connector, we have the action get manager. So I'll select this. For the user information from dynamic content, I will search for created by and pick the created by email. So the user who created the item, go and grab the manager information from AD. Now once I have this, I would like to place that information into my list item. I will update the item, pick my site, my list. For the ID, from the trigger itself, I'll pick the ID. Any other mandatory fields I would have to fill out. So title is a mandatory field. So if I search for title from the trigger itself, I can grab the title and place it right here. Now comes the part of updating first the manager information. So I have that manager column. So right here is manager claims. I can open this drop down, go to enter custom value. And from dynamic content, if I search for mail, I can get the email address of the user's manager from that get manager action. And now since I want to start my approval process, I also want to change the status of my item because I'm about to start the approval process. So for that, right here, I will go ahead and set the status to pending manager approval. Now that I have the item updated, next step is for me to get the approval process started. Now, I not only want to start the approval process, but I also want the link to the approval action so that I can add it right here in my item. So for that, before updating the item, I will go and add an action and I will select the create an approval action. Here, I'll pick my approval type as first to respond. The title of my approval, I've plugged in leave request and the dynamic content value of the title for the leave request that the user put in. Now assign to, who do you want to assign this task to? I want to assign it to the user's manager. So I'll pick the mail of the user's manager. Details is where I can add in certain details about this approval request. Let's say I put the title of the leave request. I can put the leave type value and I can add other details as well. I can even provide the link to the item here directly from dynamic content. I can provide a description to the link. Maybe I'll plug in the title of the leave request as the link description. We'll click on show advanced options, who the requester is. So this will be the user who created the item. So I'll pick the created by email of the user who created the item. So I will rename this manager approval. Key thing to note, I used create an approval and not start and wait for an approval. If I use start and wait for an approval, once the flow hits that action, it will create the approval task, but the flow will wait. I need the link of the approval action. That's why I used create an approval. The flow will not wait right now. It will go through this step, then straight away move to the next step, which is update item. And right here, I have my approval link. And this is where I will plug in the respond link dynamic content from that create an approval action. So I'm going to select this. Once I'm done with this, I will go ahead and execute wait for an approval. And here I need to provide the ID of the approval, which once again, from the dynamic content, I can pick the approval ID. So start the approval, go and update the item, plug in the approval link, change the status, set the manager, and then go ahead and wait for that approval action to be complete. Now the next steps are those common steps that we take after an approval action. I will add a condition, check the outcome of the approval. If the outcome is approved, I will want to update the item. So I'll add an action here. Rename this to manager approved. Pick my SharePoint site and list. Pick the ID from the trigger. Ensure I fill in all the mandatory fields. And now I would like to change the status. Because the manager has approved it, it will move to the next state, which is pending HR approval. So that's what I've changed right here. I also have approval commands. So this is where I can plug in the details of the approval response. So right here, I'll plug in approved by manager. And maybe in brackets, I will give the name of the manager. So for that, I can get it directly from the dynamic content. I have the responses approver name from the wait for an approval action. So I can pick that. The moment I pick it, it will apply a loop around this action. That's because there could be multiple responses. But in our case, I'm assigning the task only to a single user. So this loop is not a problem. And then I'm going to plug in the comments that I received from the approver. So this completes the setup for when the manager approves the response. Now, what if the manager rejects it? I will set the status to declined. Put the approval commands as rejected by manager. Once again, pick the name of the approver, which will apply that loop. And then I can add the commands that the approver has entered as well. So this completes the first approval process, which is the manager approval. Now, if the manager has approved it, I would like to start the second approval process as well. So for that, I will add an action. Once again, I will use the create an approval action. Pick the type first to respond. Put the title of the approval. Here I'm calling it as leave request HR approval and putting the title of the leave right here. Assign to, now in my case, I'm just hard coding my HR manager, but this can be dynamically read from a list or a group. All those things are possible. So I'm just hard coding this to Reza, providing a few details right here. And I will rename this action to HR approval. Now, once again, same as before, I want to start the approval process and then change the status. So this action where I'm updating the status, I want to add this after the approval action because I want to plug in the new approval link that is for the HR approval. So I will select this action, drag it and place it below the HR approval. So the approval gets created. The flow will not wait because I used create an approval. And right here now, I want to plug in the link to the HR approval. So once again, I can pick the respond link dynamic content, but this time from the HR approval action. Once I'm done with this, I will use the wait for an approval action again and plug in the ID of the approval from the HR approval action. I have renamed this to wait for HR approval. Once the response is received, Same steps as before. Condition to check the outcome of the wait for HR approval action. If it is approved, let's go ahead and update the item once again. And here I will update the status now to approved because my process is complete. For the approval commands, I will plug in approved by HR, give the name of the HR user here. So from the wait for HR approval action, I will get the name of the approver. Once again, it will apply the loop. And I can also plug in the commands. Now, if I need to maintain the entire approval commands, in the previous step for when the manager approved it, right here is where I plugged in the approval commands. So this is what I need to append right here. So at the bottom here, I will search for approval commands, and my action manager approved has those approval commands. So I'm going to just pick it and apply it right here. So this will give me the entire thread of the approval commands. For the HR claims, I need to ensure that I add the HR user's name here. So I will edit this and just plug in Reza's email address right here. So for rejection, I will set the status to declined, and my approval commands will be rejected by HR. Put the name of the HR user right here, which will apply the loop, plug in the commands, and once again, pick the approval commands from that manager approved action so that I have the entire thread of the approval commands. This completes my flow. I will click on save. And now the flow is set and ready to go. Now logging into the leave request app as user Sarah. Sarah goes to log in as an employee, and Sarah currently has no requests. So Sarah will go ahead and create a new request. It's a vacation request. Sarah will select the leave type, provide some details, set the from date, set the to date, and submit the request. And Sarah is redirected back to the home page right here. And Sarah can see that the approval request is currently in pending status, and it is pending with the manager, which is Reza. And this is because the flow has set the status to pending manager. Now logged in as Reza, I need to create that approval dashboard. Now if I look at the SharePoint list, here is the leave request that was submitted by Sarah. It's assigned to Reza, so I'm the manager. My name is there in that person column because I set it through the flow. The status is pending manager approval. I set that through the flow as well. And right here, I have the link to that approval action that only Reza will have access to. For me to display a dashboard that shows all the information from that SharePoint list where the approver is me and based on the status, here is what the items property of my gallery will look like. So filter my leave request list where the status.value is pending manager approval, and the email from that manager column is equal to, I already have a variable created that stores the user.email information, which gives me the email of the logged in user in the app. So I've stored it as a variable. That's best practice. So I'm straight away going to use that, which is my user email. Now, if I go ahead and preview my app, this will show me all the data from that leave request list where I am the manager and the status is pending manager approval. And right now there's only one item that matches that scenario. That's why I see that right here. So if I go to the approval dashboard now, this is specific to my app, specific to me who's logged in, and it is only showing me those requests where I have to take an action on. Of course, we also have the HR approval. That's a part of this. So what we can do here is, here's my first criteria. So I will plug this in brackets and then apply an OR statement and apply the second logic, which is if the status is pending HR approval and I have the HR column, if the email address in that HR column matches the current logged in user. That means if the status is pending HR manager and I am the manager, show me that value in this gallery. Or if the status is pending HR approval and I am the HR approver, show me that record in this gallery. That's exactly what we see here. Now, how do I take an action on the approval? Well, for that, I can easily go right here to my gallery, and in this, I will insert a button. I've just changed the text to action so the user can take an action. And on select of this button, I will use the launch function. And here, I will use this item dot approval link. This is that approval link column that we created and populated through the flow after the approval action in the flow. So I'm going to launch this. I do not want to pass any parameters, so empty string. And I will want this to open as a new tab. So I'll do launch target dot new. And this now will straight away launch that approval card in flow. Let's test it out. I'll preview this. If I click on action, this should directly open up the approval dashboard in flow, and not just that, also straight away relate to that specific request, which is my leave request, vacation request from Sarah. I can see all the details here, and right here is where I can take a decision. So let's say I approve this. I say it looks good. I will click confirm, and the decision now has been taken or recorded. Now, if I go back to the app, it's not going to change automatically here. But if I click on action again, because I've already taken the decision, it's going to tell me that this approval is no longer active. So that's an indicator that the decision was already taken. If the user goes back or logs out and then comes back in, as you can see now, the approval dashboard is empty. And that is because if we look at the backend SharePoint list now, the SharePoint list item for the vacation request, the status now has changed to pending HR approval. I can see who the HR approver is. It's Reza. And the approval commands has the information of the manager approval. So if I log in again as an approver, I can see that action once again open up for me. And I see that I have to take a decision again. This time I'm playing the role of the HR approver. If I click on action, it's going to launch my flow. This time, check the title. It says leave request HR approval. So it's that second action. And here I can take my decision of approve or reject. I'm going to say approve. I'll say OK. Click confirm. This time, if I log in as the approver, I see that my approval dashboard is empty. That means I have nothing in this application that's pending my approval. And if Sarah signs back in, Sarah can see that her vacation request has been approved. If you look at the SharePoint list item, I have the full approval commands history right here. Who approved it? What were their commands? I can even log things like how long did they take to approve, what date and time they approved on, and many other pieces of information that we can capture from that approval action. This time, let's try this one more time with a different user now, James. So James signs in as an employee. James has no request, so James creates a new request. James plugs in his leave request details and clicks submit. Now, if James goes to the home page, James can see that his request is right here, and gray indication is that the approval process has not yet started. Now, once the approval flow kicks in, I will see that the status will set to pending manager approval. So if James logs back in to the app, or James clicks on refresh, the approval process now is under manager approval. The manager for James is Sarah. So let's log in as Sarah. Now, of course, these are flow approvals. Sarah gets an actionable email directly in her mailbox where she can take a decision on the approval action. So Sarah can approve or reject directly from the email, or if Sarah goes to the leave request app, and this time Sarah signs in as the approver, Sarah gets that approval action card right here in that app itself. Sarah can click on action. This will launch the flow approval dashboard, take Sarah directly to that item, and Sarah can take her decision right here, approve or reject. Let's say Sarah approves it. Sarah puts in a comment, clicks confirm. The approval decision is logged. If I sign in back as James, James can see that the approval process has moved ahead from Sarah now to Reza, who is the HR approver. The status clearly says pending HR approval. And now logging in as Reza into the approval dashboard as an approver, I can see that same request that James had submitted right here, and it's pending my decision. I will click on action. Let's say I reject this and I click confirm. This time signed in as James, I can see that the approval request has been declined by Reza, who is the HR manager. So this is one way where you can show the approval request information directly in a Power App. And in my gallery here, the way I'm showing these images, basically I'm showing the created by users picture. Then I'm using that manager column. So I'm showcasing that picture. And then I'm showing the HR users picture directly from that HR column. So having those columns at the back end makes it easy for me to showcase the pictures here. And then related to the status, all I had to do was check the status of the item. Where are we in the process? And accordingly show the different icons and change the colors. If you enjoyed this video, then do like, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And thank you so much for watching.